Hello, and welcome to the Oily Crafter YouTube video channel. My name is Dr. Greg Medore. My call sign is Alpha India 5 Hotel Victor. And today we will be talking about a DMR master code plug for Northeast Oklahoma. I recently had a request from a ARES emergency coordinator to define and create a DMR code plug for use by the ARES members. Additionally, I had the president of a local amateur radio club come to me and ask if I would be the DMR resource for the club for new members coming on board that need help with programming their DMR code plug, their DMR radios. So it seemed to me like a wonderful opportunity to combine those two requests and come up with a master code plug for DMR for Northeast Oklahoma. So where I started with first is I went to repeaterbook.com. I went to Oklahoma, which that's the area that I'm in, and then what I did was I did a proximity report here, and in here I put in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and then I did a distance. Actually, in here I did a distance of 75 miles. Now you might think that's a little excessive, but that's what I did. So 2 meter, 70 centimeter, and then FM, and I also did DMR. And then I did open repeaters only and confirmed on air. Then I hit search. This is the list of repeaters that I came up with. So what I did was I saved that you can export this. Come up here to export, and you come to AnyTone, and then you can pick a 578, 868, and 878 channel file. So I just picked the 578. You can do the 878 as well. So under the memory name, actually what I wanted, the reason I did this is I did location and city. I did memory name. I did the frequency. So I did location and city first, and then I did frequency. You might wonder, well, why did I do that? It's because in the code plug, some people, of course, just inherently, they know all the call signs for all the repeaters in their local area. What I found is that newly licensed hams, what happens is they need help with locating repeaters, and they usually do it by geographics. So they're looking for a analog repeater in Tulsa, Oklahoma, Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, Claremore, Owasso, Sapulpa, wherever. They're looking for those repeaters. And then frequency, I did frequency there, and I agree that the data will be used for personal use. Well, in this particular case, we are using it for ARES. ARES has a very trusted relationship with repeater book folks, and so they have provided their permission for us to do this. So we clicked on download, and we come over here and we say, okay, this is our CSV file that it exported, and you can see here's all the list of the different repeaters in the area, right? So another resource that I needed was I'm going to need the DMR IDs. So I went to AnyTone. Now you can get this from a bunch of different sources. You can get it from Brandmeister, you can get it from TGIF, you can get it from a number of locations. I get it from here, and it works just fine for me. So we go to anytone.org, and I click on download DMR IDs, which takes you to this page. And then I come in and I do download DMR list now. So if I download that list right here, you scroll down. Now, different DMR radios, I will say this, different DMR radios don't have the channel capacity of other DMR radios. So for example, an AnyTone578UVIIIPro or a ARES-specific DMR, they hold 500,000 DMR IDs. Now, I'm not compensated by Bridgecom or AnyTone in any way, shape, or form to do that, but I'm just letting you know this is my personal experience. So what I do is right here is I click on all and I download that. Lots of ads. Okay. Now if I come back up here to there, you'll notice this contacts. This is a contacts.zip file, right? So I have that information that I need there. So at this point, I will go ahead and we're going to leave this alone. And let me bring up my Excel spreadsheet that I have. So what I did is I pulled up the Excel spreadsheet that I've built in preparation for this video. So what I've done is I went through and I built this spreadsheet and I sorted it by, again, this is city and then frequency. So you'll notice I've got all these repeaters in here and all these ones here through the beginning. These are all repeaters, analog repeaters in the Tulsa, greater Tulsa area within 75 miles. Now the other thing that I did do is you'll notice that I included some of these other repeaters that are obviously Arkansas, etc. And you're wondering, okay, well, why the heck did I do that? Well, I'll show you why. So the Tulsa Amateur Radio Club has a repeater system, and it's called the Superlink system. And if you notice, if you look at this map, and we're going to try and zoom in here just a little bit, you notice this map. This is a map that shows all the different Superlink radios. And at any one given time, something may be down for maintenance. Okay, I understand that. But it covers a really huge area, right? And we scroll down, and here's a list of the different locations, different repeaters, the location, the frequency, PL tone, and who it's operated by. So I wanted to include those repeaters as well, just simply because they do play a very large part, especially in weather spotting. So I gathered that information, and I also included that information in this spreadsheet as well. Okay, so for example, Tulsa 443.85, well, that was in the analog list as well as the Superlink system. Some of these repeaters here that are in they're in Arkansas, they're on that Superlink system. So I've included those in this list here. I've included all those, and you'll notice that I've got transmission power. I've got transmission power of high on all of these. The bandwidth is 25K, and then if they have a CTCSS, this is for decode. This is for encode. So this would be for your transmit. This would be for your receive. Right? So I've got all those plugged in. All right? So now we're going to go on to, I'm going to call out another couple ones here. I included the UHF and the VHF calling frequency as well, the national calling frequency, because I thought, you know what, those are kind of important. Another frequency that I included on here is Windlink. If you're part of ARES, we have in this area, due to large in part by a few individuals there, we have what's called a Windlink net. That's where you participate in a Windlink exercise instead of annually, semi-annually, or quarterly. We have a Windlink net every week. That helps us keep our skills up on how do we set our radios, how do we communicate to radios. Well, this particular frequency happens to be the VHF frequency for Windlink in the area, and there are several different Windlink servers, if you will, or nodes here that will accept traffic. So that's why that is in there. Now, local repeater or receive and transmit, that was for a exercise or a test that I did on the 578, AnyTone 578. As you know, it has a built-in crossband repeater function. And so I put those in there, and they are in their own zone, if you will. So we will continue, we'll just continue going through this. The other thing that I also included in this list is I wanted to include, because the AnyTone578 has 220 frequency range, or 1.25 meter, I included the 220 repeaters in this code plug as well. Now obviously those will not work in an AnyTone 878 because it doesn't support that band. Additionally, I did the 7 NOAA frequencies, 1 through 7. Now here in this particular area, I believe we used NOAA 5. That's the one that comes in with the strongest signal. Next set of channels here is we did ARES channels. This is received for North America, received for the International Space Station, as well as digital ARES. You would use, in this case, I would use with a hotspot. Now, here's a real the big piece of why we're even doing this project. This has to do with the DMR repeaters in the area. So you wonder, okay, well, why all the color coding? Why all the highlighting? Well, over here I have a key, or a legend, if you will, that shows all the highlighting and what it means. So these are for the hotspot, these are for 50 states, and this is US regional. So we're going to come back over here. 446.55, that is a typical frequency that you might use on your digital hotspot, running WPSD or running Pi-Star. I'm running WPSD. I love it. Absolutely nothing wrong with Pi-Star. Andy did a great job on building that out initially, but Chip Cuccio and his team have WPSD have made it much easier to perform updates, to do firmware updates on the unit, and I would strongly encourage you to, if you are looking at a hotspot, take a look at both. Take a look at Pi-Star, take a look at WPSD. WPSD also will help you to be able to enable, disable different networks on your hotspot. Again, I'm not being paid by Pi-Star, I'm not being paid by WPSD. I'm just letting you know my personal first-hand experience on using these. I used Pi-Star initially, and when WPSD became available, I converted over to it, and I love it. I absolutely love it. So I encourage you to take a look at that. So these are frequencies that I have programmed for a hotspot, if you will. Now, you're probably wondering, why do I have these split out? Well, it will become a little bit more apparent as we go through this, but these are some of the ones that I want to include for the hotspot, ones that I use on a regular basis, that I felt that other people might also want to use. Now, this next section here, this is for North America and all 50 states. So you'll notice that, like, for example, here's Oklahoma, and the talk group for this one is 3140. That is the main Brandmeister talk group for DMR 3140. But as you can see, we have all the different states listed here. Okay. Now the next set here, these are just some additional DMR channels that I added into my into this code plug: Hurricane Net, Tactical Channel, Oklahoma Central, Oklahoma East. There's one there for Oklahoma Link. There's several others there. Oklahoma Weather. Ham Shack Hotline is another one that I included that in there as well. So again, all ones that I felt like were definitely usable, definitely could be a positive contributor, something that you might want to use on your DMR radio to be effective, and not have to worry about, oh darn it, I don't have that one in my code plug. Well, that may still occur, but I tried to cover as many bases as possible. So these are areas 0 through 9. These are different areas scattered throughout the United States and around that kind of a regional talk group, if you will. So those are in there as well. Again, these are all for your hotspot. Here are some custom channels that I put in. These are This is for a friend of mine that has a talk group in there that has been used in the past. We also have, I put mine, I have my wife's in here, and then you have a hotspot reboot and shutdown command. This is very helpful for you if you're out mobile and your hotspot's running. You need to reboot it. You need to shut it down. If you have a channel predefined, you can actually perform those commands without having to go into a browser and then scroll through the menus on a screen or whatever to try and shut it down. Digital examples, these are just a couple of examples there that were in an initial CodePlug. And then I have an all-star node and a clear node, and I included those in there. Now, obviously, your mileage may vary. You may have a different frequency for your all-star node. Okay, that's fine. That's great. We can go in and easily change these for you, and they're already in there. We can change the CTSS tones. We can put those in there, and what it does is it helps us to be able to quickly be able to utilize those and not have to, on the fly, try and figure out, okay, hey, now I want to use an all-star node. Now I want to use a clear node. Now I want to use this. I tried to include things that I use on a frequent basis in this CodePlug. Okay, so now we're down to the DMR channels, if you will. The DMR repeaters, pardon me. Okay, so again, so right here we have the Tulsa DMR repeater followed by the Manford repeater, Keatonville repeater. So if we come back over here and we look, so this is the Tulsa Central repeater. Notice these are channels that we said with input that we had, we said, okay, we want to be able to use these in Northeast Oklahoma. These are ones that we would communicate on if we had some type of a emergency or a simulated training that we might be doing for ARES. We wanted to include those in there. And so what you've noticed is you'll notice I've got the receive and the transmit frequency set up for those repeaters. Notice I have dates on here where I actually tested those, all the different settings, right? And now what's interesting is when we look at for each different repeater, let's come back over here to repeater book. Come down here and see if we can find one that's a DMR for Tulsa Lookout Mountain. This one right here. So what we had to do was we had to look at each one of these repeaters. 442.475. The uplink is 447.475. Notice those frequencies are right here in the CodePlug. So the other thing that we had to identify was we had to identify, okay, what color code, this is on the Brandmeister network, what color code do we need? All right, so in this case, color code 2. Well, here's our entry for color code 2. So for this repeater, they're all color code 2. Now we have to figure out time slot as well. So we have to come back over here to repeater book and we look at time slot, and we have different channels are on different time slots. So then you have to come into your CodePlug and you have to account for the different time slots for each one of these channels. And what we discussed is that we wanted all these different DMR repeaters in there for basically the eastern half of Oklahoma. We wanted those in there, and we wanted the same set of channels for each one. So you'll notice this was Tulsa Central. This repeater here, come over here and look at the legend. Okay, the next one is for the Manford DMR repeater. Okay, so again, what we had to do was we went in the Manford repeater, right, and we looked for the frequency. Okay, so let's back up here. Let's come down here and let's see if we can find the Manford repeater right here. Okay, notice the Manford repeater, 444.45. Okay, we come back over here and we look. Okay, here's our receive frequency. Transmit frequency is 5 megahertz higher. So 449.45. Come back over here. There we go. So this is Manford repeater. And then we've got color code. So now let's come back here and look at color code. Color code 1. Okay, well, if we had used the settings that we did on Tulsa Central, that repeater was set to color code 2. Well, this one's color code 1, so we had to set the color code on it. Now let's come back over here and let's look. Okay, now we've got different channels on different time slots, so we had to come back over here and we programmed in the time slots. Okay, and then subsequently we did it for all these other different repeaters, and the different repeaters, again, Tulsa Central, Manford, Keatonville, Mounds, Muskogee, Fort Gibson DMR repeater, Big Cabin, Depew, Oklahoma City 1, Oklahoma City 2, Norman, Edmond, Bartlesville 1, Bartlesville 2, Claremore, Stillwater, Ponca City. So all in total there are 16 DMR repeaters that are in this list. Now what I can tell you very specifically is that some of these I was able to test very specifically, right? I was able to test. Now some of these I could not hit that repeater from here. So some of the repeaters that were further away, like Depew, Oklahoma City, Norman, Edmond, Bartlesville, I haven't been able to test those. So in the CodePlug, what we decided to do was we decided to leave them in the CodePlug, but we're going to hide the zone until we are able to test those repeaters to ensure that the settings that we have in this CodePlug are correct. So I know some people may say, well, why not leave them in there, leave them visible? Well, what I don't want is I don't want somebody to be in there and be frustrated and say, oh my gosh, I want to be able to use this repeater. Well, it's a simple click in the CPS software to unhide the zone, rewrite it to the radio, and then you're good to go. So let's come back down here. Okay, and we're going to keep going through all these different repeaters. Okay, so now remember those repeaters, remember those settings that we had up here earlier that were for the hotspot? Right in here. These settings right in here. And notice these settings, I also repeated those settings down below, or those channels down below. And the reason I did that was very simple. I wanted to be able to notice these frequencies. These are for Tulsa Central. So the other use case scenario is I don't have a hotspot. I want to be able to use these channels, but I've got to use them on a repeater. So what I did was I went through and I said, okay, I'm going to use all these different channels here. I'm going to use them, and I want them to be programmed so that I use the Tulsa Central repeater. So you notice there's this whole section here that is programmed for the Tulsa Central repeater. And the reason I didn't change the hotspot one was I said, well, I want to be able to offer flexibility as well as covering all these different options and use case scenarios. The section up here was for, okay, I have a hotspot. The section down here is I don't have a hotspot, but I still want to use them all. Right? So the next section here is TGIF. Now, in this particular video, I'm not going to cover adding in TGIF talk groups into your CodePlug because I've already covered that in a previous video. So you can look in the Oily Crafter YouTube channel, and there's one about expanding your CodePlug using Excel spreadsheet, right? So in that one, I covered in great detail the ability to be able to add in all additional Brandmeister talk groups, add in a bunch of TGIF talk groups into your CodePlug, right? But you can see there's a number of TGIF in here. Okay? Now, down here, this next section was provided by a Tulsa Area Emergency Management person, and basically it was all the different frequencies and repeaters, including simplex frequencies, that might be used for a ARES type of an event, a SET event, a weather net, a hospital net, etc. And so the names are, you'll notice that they're a little bit different. But what I did was I tried to honor the naming that the file that he sent me that had the name of the channel. Now, one thing that I did do is I added the frequency behind it, because most people, like myself, I look at that and I go, okay, WXNet, okay, WeatherNet, okay. Well, I happen to know that 443.85 is the main frequency for the WeatherNet here in Tulsa area. Now, in other locations, I'm thinking, okay, well, I don't necessarily know what those, by these names. Without the frequencies, I might not know what channel that is. So in this case, I put the frequency in there so that if someone could look at it, they looked at it and they go, okay, well, this is, 146.88. Okay, perfect. Now you notice that some of these, notice they have an S after the name there. Well, that name, that S, basically what that means is that's the simplex frequency. So you notice the receive and the transmit is the same number. Right here, they're different. This has the offset built into the channel, right? So that's what I did. So put all those in there, and I incorporated those in there. All right. So now, in order to be able to get those into my radio, into my CPS software, what I did was I came up here and I clicked right here to the left of the A and above the 1, did a right click, and I did copy. And I did file open, I did blank, and I clicked right there and I said paste values right there. Now, I do know this tested column does not, it's not needed in the CPS software, so I'm going to get rid of it, right? So now I'm going to say, now I've got that, and I'm going to say save, browse, downloads. Okay, and in this particular case, I'm going to save this in a comma delimited file, because that's what you need in order master CodePlug channels right there. And then I'm going to save that. Okay, so now I've got my channel saved. I'm going to minimize this. I'm going to minimize this. So now I'm going to come over here and I'm going to AnyTone. And in this particular case, I have multiple different versions of the CPS software. This one I have for my 578UVIIIPro, which I have not updated the firmware, and then I have this one, which is the one for the 578UVIII Plus that I have updated the firmware on. So basically, what I can do is I can load this, load the CPS software, and in this particular case, this one right here, I'm going to hit open. Now again, this is a program that I already have built. What I'm doing, I did that in the interest of saving time on the video, but I am going to walk you through all the different steps of what I did to get it there, right? All right, so now in order to import those channels, I would say come up here to Tool, and I would say Import. I would hit OK. And then this is if you had a list file that you want to import it all. Here on the channels, I would hit Channel, and then I would come over here and I would say, here's the channels I need. I would click on that, select it, and hit Open, and then I would say Import. Import's complete. I'm going to hit Close. And you notice that in my different channels here, notice I have name call signs, so we'll show you, you have to go in and you have to set that as well. And notice I left a blank line in between each section here. Okay? Now I come into zone, and this is where the real mastery happens. Now, one thing I will point out is you must have talk groups. Talk groups must be populated ahead of time to include all the different, to be able to include all the different talk groups that you're going to build a channel on. So make sure that your talk groups are loaded ahead of time. If you import a channel list and it doesn't have all the talk groups in there, then you're going to end up loading the talk groups, and then you will have to go back and re-import your channel list. Okay? So now we have here, we have in the zone list, we have analog repeaters. And when I go into analog repeaters, this is all the analog repeaters we had, if you remember, at the top of that Excel spreadsheet. Come down here, this is the crossband. Those are those two channels that I had. This is 220, those are in there as well. Here's the NOAA channels. Here's the APRS channels. This is the Hotspot, and bunch of different channels here that we have for the Hotspot here. Here's your 50 states. If you want just the 50 states there, that's in there. These are the TGIF talk groups in there. And then this is the Hotspot area 0 through 5. Or 0 through 9, sorry. These are some favorites that I did, where I have the ones that I would use personally for contacting my wife directly in a private call, as opposed to a group call, reboot, shutdown, etc. Just a couple of examples there. Here we go. Here's for the different repeaters. Notice Tulsa DMR repeater. And by the way, you're probably wondering, so why did I put a 1 in front of this? In the next section, why did I put a 2 in front of this? Well, in Excel, it will let you duplicate the names in Excel. However, if you duplicate the names in CPS and then you write it to radio, what will happen is when you close that, you come back to it, even though you have channels 214 to 226, pardon me, had previously been defined in this zone, you may come back in and you may find that instead channels 200 through 212 are listed in your Manford zone. And guess what? That won't work. So that's why I put a 1-, 2-, 3-, was to give it a unique name. And the channel name, remember, can only be a maximum of 16 characters. So for each repeater, there's a unique designator at the beginning of it. You go all the way through this, and notice I have zone hide for these ones here that I have not been able to personally be able to test. Okay, here's the 50 states. This is the non-hotspot version of those channels, etc. So notice all the zones, and this was a hospital net that I had previously created, but I hid it because it didn't make any sense to me. Now, if you personally, I've got a good friend of mine that is in Michigan, and he runs every Monday night, he runs a DMR Tech net on Michigan channel 3126 talk group Brandmeister. And so I elected to put that in there. Now, I hid it because very likely that other people that are interested in Oklahoma, they may not be interested in it. But in case they are, it's much easier to leave it in there and hide it than it is to try and come back in and add it in later. And then, of course, Hospital Net, that's the one that the frequencies, the repeaters that I received from the Tulsa area emergency management person to include in there. So the only thing left is to hook up the radio and actually write it to the radio itself. So let me stop recording. I'll get the radio set up and we'll write it to the radio. So at this point we are ready to begin to write to the radio. One of the things I did was I moved the radio to a frequency that I likely won't receive any traffic on while I'm trying to do this write to the radio. So I do want to point out this is the 578 UV version 121, right? And so let's do a set, do a COM port, COM4, program. We're going to say write to radio. Oh, one other thing I want to show you here before we do this, sorry. If you wanted to update your contacts, you would want to say import, tool import, okay. Come down here and do digital contact list. Remember that contacts, oops, we would need to unzip the contacts from earlier. So extract all. Okay, there you go. So digital contact list, we would go in here to contacts, click to here, we click open, and we would click import. Now it'll take about 2 minutes or so to import it into the CPS software, and then when you go to write it, it'll take in the neighborhood of around 12 minutes or so to import it in the radio. I'm not going to bore you with that on this particular call or on this particular video, but I will. I just want to show that to you as well. All right, so let's double check here and make sure what settings we're on. Device info. Let's see, we may be on 120. Version 208. I don't recall what version 208 equates to. You will need to connect. We'll find out. So we will. The version of the CPS software does need to match your radio, the firmware version of your radio. So let's see here, CPS software and UV3 plus. So version 208, that is 121. So that's the version we're on, so we should be good to go. Okay, you do need to connect your programming cable right here. It's a USB-A to a micro USB. Does need to be a data cable. You will know for sure that it's good if you look in Device Manager for Windows. See the COM port, serial COM4. That won't be there if you, and that won't be there, and it won't show up here if it's not a data cable. So we're going to hit program. We're going to say write to radio. You want to write to radio. We're going to hit OK. Digital contact list. If you'd imported the digital contact list and wanted to write it, again, that'll take about 12 minutes if that's checked. In this case, I'm going to say other data, and I'm going to hit OK right here. Oop. Apparently I clicked on something and it wiped out the program that I had in there. Okay, that's my different zones. Okay. And these should be hidden. DMR Tulsa, Hospital Net, DMR Michigan, got it. All right. So set COM 4, tool, program, sorry, write to radio, hit OK, other data. And notice it's now showing it's writing to the radio. Okay, write data is complete. That takes no time at all to write to the radio, but again, if you write the digital contacts, it takes about 12 minutes, give or take, to write the digital contacts of radio. Notice the name and call sign is still there, so guess what? We still have some work that we need to do. Okay?
Monitoring.
Put it on, not Afton, put it on Windlink. Okay. So, you'll notice that it came up and it said name and call sign. Well, in order to use DMR, there's a few things that you have to change. So, what we're going to do is we're going to come down here to radio ID list. Right here, this is where you plug in your DMR ID. If you don't know what your DMR list is, what you can do is, remember that digital contacts list? Let me bring that up. Not that one. You can go into your digital contacts list here. You can open this up. So look at mine. That's my DMR ID and my call sign. So I would literally take my DMR my DMR ID, and I would plug it in. I'd double click here, plug in my DMR ID, plug in my name. I usually put just my first name and my call sign right here. Okay. Now the other thing that I do under prefabricated SMS, I've got some entries in here for sending messages, and you can change this phone number to anything you want. Lets you send a message to that number, and I believe now the abbreviation is SMS, not SMSGTE. I will have to double check that, and then you put from your name and call sign in here, right? The other thing you will want to do is you will want to do under optional setting. On the power on, you want to come in here and you want to put your first name and your call sign right here. The next thing is once you plug that information in, under APRS, you want to go in and for APRS and whatever you want to put your call sign in right here, and then your SSID. Now your SSID, if it's a home base unit, you might typically use a 0. If you're using a mobile unit, it could be a 5, could be a 7. 5 is usually used for iPhones, Androids, etc. Matter of fact, let me pull that information up there. See if I can pull it up here right quick. APRS. APRS, it's SSID, it's right here. So here's the SSID chart. Again, this is a recommendation, if you will. Primary station, usually fixed, -0. Generic additional station, Digi, mobile, etc. -1, -2, -3, -4. -5 used for typically D-Star iPhones, Androids. Walkie-talkies, HTs, a -7. Primary mobile, -9. So you can see what abbreviation you might want to use in there. And once you've changed all those particular settings that you need to set, you would want to do set COM. Again, make sure you're set to COM4. Come up here to Tool, Program, Write to Radio, hit OK, and it'll write to the radio. So I've written the code plug to the radio, and then I decide, oh, well, I've got a zone here that I need to make visible on the radio. It's as simple as going in here to picking the zone. You double click on the zone, come up here and I say zone hide. I uncheck that, hit OK, and then I'm going to save those changes to my code plug again. And then I'm going to come up here to do set COM, make sure that's correct. Program, write to radio. Do you wish to write to radio? OK. Other data, hit OK. And we're writing the code plug to your radio. So we'll just wait here for just a few seconds, and that code plug will be written to the radio, and it will be ready to go. All right. So now it's a matter of being able to wait for the radio to finish rebooting, and then the code plug will be ready for your use. So at this point, I'd like to say thank you for watching our video today. We very much appreciate you watching our content. Please feel free to like and subscribe to our video content, and if you have any questions, comments, concerns, please feel free to leave those down in the chat. Again, this is Dr. Greg Medore, Alpha India 5 Hotel Victor, and I'm with the Oily Crafter. We want to wish each of you a very blessed day.